The spirit of innovation is deeply ingrained in America, and Google is helping Americans innovate in ways both big and small. The Department of Defense is working with Google to help secure America's digital defense systems, from establishing cloud-based zero-trust solutions to deploying the latest AI technology. This is a new era of American innovation. Find out more at g.co/American innovation.
Empire.
Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone, hi everyone, hi everyone. What a day, guys. He did it. He did it. Amazing. Just it's it's like we knew he was going to do it, but it's amazing that he did it. It was incredible. Alex Ovechkin, that was just remarkable.
He is, if not the best DC athlete of all time, he might be one of the most important in terms of what he's done for the team. And you could see the sense of relief when he scored yesterday too. You and I talked about it last week about how I think he's just ready to get this over with. You know it's going to happen, but he's ready to get this done. Yeah. And yeah, greatest goal scorer of all time. Does it from his office on the power play. Like, you couldn't have scripted that one any better. And yeah, he's the greatest goal scorer of all time. Like, it has officially happened. And that stoppage during the game was really cool with Bettman, Gretzky, and everyone as well.
He's got to do the dog and pony show, but oddly, they have 3 days off between their next game. So I'm sure they're going to ask him to do a lot of things over the next few days, whether it's appearances or photo shoots or interviews or all that stuff. I'm sure ESPN wants to talk to him. Fox, everyone wants to talk to him. I'm sure TNT wants to talk to him. I'm sure they all want to do it. And the good part about this is 3 days off and 5 or 6 games left. They can, once this is literally over with, actually as a team play fast and loose, I think, from here. So he's done them a favor by not ultimately, not that he was trying to, but not drawing this thing out any longer than it had to be. It was going to come to an end either way at the end of the regular season, because the playoff goals don't count towards this record, which is an odd quirk, I think, to that record, that it doesn't count. But it didn't. So if for some reason this dragged along and it got to the end of the season, whether he got it or not, it would have been like, well, we've spent the last, whole end of the season. Now we got to turn around and not think about it. They're going to go through whatever they have to go through this week. He's going to, Thursday night's going to be amazing there, obviously. And then maybe he'll add to the record, but it won't have this kind of weight attached to it. And by the time we get around to the playoffs, hopefully everything will be back about the team, which is, I think, one of his greatest attributes is that's what he's about, actually. That's why I love it for him. That's what it's about for him.
Yeah, he said it in that speech on the ice when they stopped the game, of like, he couldn't do it without his teammates. He calls out Backstrom and Oshie, getting emotional about it, and 100%. Like, I think what kind of got lost in this chase, at least for the last couple of weeks, was, it's funny. Like, you guys know, like, this is a luxury right now. They're the best, if not the second best team in hockey, and we get to just worry about this record because they've been so good this season. Like, that was what was kind of lost over the last 2 or 3 weeks in the plot, was like, they're allowed to do this and not worry about a playoff spot because they've had a playoff spot locked in since January, right? Like, they've been so good, and he's been a legitimate part of that as well. And so seeing the teammates, like, what's funny too is, like, this weekend there were multiple points. Friday, when they all mobbed him on the ice for just tying the record, was really cool too. I didn't know they were going to do it. I didn't really know what the plan was when he was going to tie. Doing that and then doing the same reaction on Sunday was really cool. And all you ever hear about everyone is how great of a teammate he is. And that was just reiterated over the weekend.
They love him. They love him. And there's what's not to love. Like, his one flaw is he's not a good speech giver. He's really, really, really succinct, almost doesn't know what to say. But I feel like it is because he knows how great he is. You can't not know that without doing the things that he's done his whole career. And then obviously having this record, standing next to Wayne Gretzky, has more goals than him. You know how good you are. He doesn't act like it. He really doesn't act like it. I don't know what he's like behind the scenes, obviously, but like, every indication of him is he actually doesn't want this type of attention on him, that he tries to pass it off. I'm sure it's important to him. How many sticks does he have in his garage? So he keeps everything. He knows this is important. he wants to be this person. That is clear. And you can't get there without that kind of drive. This doesn't happen by accident. But his sheer love of the game, his sheer love of being a teammate, it is amazing. I mean, the part for me that's the most touching part of it for me is that we were lucky to draft him. It could have been anybody. We were lucky to draft him. He did it all here. He never left. He never publicly stated he wanted to leave. There are, in any great player's career, plenty of times in any organization where things could have come up. There were a couple notable coaches that came along the way that he did not get along with. There are a couple of notable times they had still a really good team, but they were struggling to get into the playoffs when they were accustomed to being President's Trophy winners or contenders. He got older. I'm not sure what he really thought about some of the moves that were being made over the last couple of years when they were trying to thread the needle. But he never once publicly walked out there and said, I don't want to wear this jersey. I don't want to be here. He appreciated being here. And so he's ours. And we're lucky. We're lucky we had him because he didn't have to be here. And we just happened to have the number one pick that year. And it turned out he was loyal to a fault. He was team first. He's a tremendous, tremendous player. He's got a body made of steel. He might be a robot. And the guy at his age to care the way that he cares, to do it like not crawling to it, scoring 40 goals in a season where he broke his leg in the middle of it. It's just, it hits everything. He is everything you could ask for out of someone to represent you, everything, with the lone issue that he'll, that always will hang over him. That's not his fault, which is where he comes from, who's he been associated with, who he's linked to because of his fame in that country, and geopolitically throughout his career, how he tried to navigate that. And I think he tried to navigate it the best way possible, which was to stay out of it, really.
Yep.
For them as much as possible, but that's not his fault. Where he was born, what country he's from, like that's not his fault. He did everything in the best interest of the league, in the best interest of this team, in clearly the best interest of his teammates. They love him, all of them. I mean, I bet you every single one of them wanted to be there for this. They love him. And it's just an amazing, incredible feat that I'm not sure we're ever going to see from any player here of any uniform that will match anything like this. Jaden Daniels could have just an astounding career. Is he going to be better than Tom Brady? God, I hope so. But even if he does that, that's it. That's all I can think of that would be anything even remotely close to this, unless we get our Kobe Bryant or something like that. There's nothing like this.
Yeah, you would need the whoever the GOAT in the sport is to be propped up, then to be taken down. That's what this takes, essentially. So you would need someone to come along to be better than Brady, better than Jordan. The next Mike Trout, I guess, if we want to go that route, if there's someone in baseball, but I don't know if baseball really resonates as much, that's Shohei. But in terms of Ovechkin and his time here, I was thinking about this yesterday and on Saturday, because I was kind of reflecting. Sunday, by the way, yesterday was the 21-year anniversary to the day the Caps won the lottery to get him. I mean, to just think that the culmination happens 21 years later, no one knows how a guy's career is going to go, but no one thought it was going to go 21 years later and he'd be breaking, the all-time goal scoring record. The crazy thing about reflecting is all I could think about too was what you were kind of harping on there is Ovechkin never said anything about wanting to leave, never said anything about management, never said anything about his teammates, about changing things up. He always took the brunt of the responsibility on some of those brutal playoff losses too, by the way. He always took responsibility for all of it. And I'll never forget too, there would be those years where people would start floating out there. Should they trade him? Should they trade him? I remember distinctly Michael Wilbon going on PTI one day saying they have to trade him because they can't win. And we never, ever had any shadow of a doubt that he wanted to be a part of this team. And the Caps were also loyal back to him as well, which I think is important here. Not to say that they ever would have traded him, but they knew this is a guy that stirs the drink. This is the guy that's selling our season tickets. This is the guy that people come to our games to watch. We're not going to go off the course with him. And I think that the Caps organization should be, patting themselves on the back today too, that they did stick it out with him. And what did it culminate with? Culminated with their first Stanley Cup and maybe the greatest achievement that we've seen in the modern hockey era, that a record. I know people didn't think Wayne's, record would be broken. This one's going to be tough too. And just of how, guys play, how physical it is, injuries. And honest to God, it's the consistency. That was goal number 43 on the season for him yesterday. That's crazy. That's crazy. And he broke his leg, and he's 39 years old, and he's doing that.
When he broke his leg, I'm like, well, the record's over for this year, but good thing he's under contract next year. He'll get it next year. And I envision him crawling to it, that like at some point early in the year, it would be broken and but this is so much better because it really is actually who he is. Like he plays in a way where he gives his best to the game. Like I know that there were probably some people, and I saw a lot of people react like wishing it didn't happen there, that they wished it would have happened here. And I actually felt the opposite of it. Like
me too.
This guy came to play every day.
Yep.
Like I appreciated he didn't want to break it on an empty net goal. I appreciated that part. I didn't think that would look right, that it had to be a real goal in a real moment in a power play or no power play, but in the course of action in a game where the outcome matters. That's the only way he should be breaking this record. He may get a few more empty net goals to lap Gretzky at some point, but not the one that matters where you take the picture sitting next to him. And secondarily, I felt like I'm okay with him doing it somewhere else. This guy showed up for almost 20 years of NHL hockey, and he played every night. Russian machine never breaks. He always shows up. He's not telling his teammates, hey, guys, don't pass it to me in the slot here because I actually want to try to do it on Thursday night. No, he just wanted to play hard and win. And I think it's emblematic of who he is. And, does it a little suck that highlight is on Islanders ice forever? I don't know. Like, does it matter? It doesn't. That is actually him. He showed up to play every single game. He never took a night off. The last few years, he's looked his age at times, but it wasn't for a lack of effort. He wasn't cherry picking. He wasn't trying to just pad a record. He was giving them everything he had. And we were talking about this last week, and what's really amazing in watching him through the years. He is such a different player than he used to be. His age does not allow him to be the player that he was back then, but he used to be a physical player. He was Tom Wilson. He was trucking people. He was someone who I think had to learn how to pass at some point in time, but he was so gifted and his shot was so skilled. He relied on it. And why wouldn't you? I mean, that's what his moneymaker was. That's what his moneymaker is. And that's why this record probably won't be broken. Like I was talking to Archer last night, and we were talking about it, and he said, do you think anyone will break it? And I go, well, there's a couple of players right now that are young that are really, really, really good. Like Austin Matthews, who's not young, but young. Connor McDavid, who's still pretty young and is really, really, really good. But I'm like, but the reality of playing as long as he did and having the consistency that he had, that's the only way that anyone's going to actually break it. And I hope that people like Matthews and McDavid have the type of career and health that give them the opportunity to do something like this. But it is so unlikely, extremely unlikely that anyone's going to be able to play as long as he had at the consistency that he had to get to this number.
Yeah, with his next game, he'll pass Wayne Gretzky in games played. Like that's the craziest part about it. He did it he passed him with the exact same amount of games played, and he's going to pass him. And I think Wayne is 26 or 25 on the list. So only 25 players have played more games than Gretzky and Ovi have. Like that alone has to tell you how hard it is. You need to play that many games and be that good throughout that many games. It's a record that's going to be really hard to break. But I will say this. I think this area, we're going to appreciate it if someone gets close to that because we watched it happen and how hard it actually is. Like we have a different perspective than everyone else. On what you started that off with, though, with the scoring at home or away thing, I love David Aldridge, but he tweeted out on Friday, with all due respect, he should sit on Sunday.
No.
And I didn't want to say anything, but that's so anti-Ovechkin that I've ever heard.
That's not who he is.
He would never want that to happen. He would never sit that out. The most drama we got over the weekend was on Friday where the who are they even playing on Friday? I can't even remember. Blackhawks. The Blackhawks pull the goalie and he has one leg over the board and everyone's going, oh, is he actually going to go out there to try to get a hat trick on an empty net? And I actually thought, I don't want it to happen on an empty net, but getting a hat trick at home to do it, the scene would be unreal, right? But he decided not to do that. And you know what? He was conscious of, this is the only decision I'm going to make. I'm not going to make it an empty netter. that's as far as it goes with that guy. Like, he was not going to decide, oh, I need to do it at home or I need to do it away. Go look at all of his major accomplishments. He scored 800 in Chicago. They won the Stanley Cup away. Like, all these big moments actually do happen away quite a bit. And if you look at his home road splits of scoring, it's 50-50. He scores the exact amount of goals on the road that he does at home. So that's just not who he is. And so just to like have it happen yesterday too, it's like, it doesn't matter where it's going to happen because it will happen. And so Ovechkin, he is inevitable, is pretty much what I came down to.
I mean, I want to go back to his teammates too. Like, Nick Backstrom was there. TJ Oshie was there. I'm sure plenty of others were there. Those are the two we saw, do interviews and talk with him and celebrate it with him. And that tells you everything too. Like, this is not Michael Scotty. Like, Nick Backstrom's going to go in the Hall of Fame too, or I believe he should go in the Hall of Fame. TJ Oshie might go in the Hall of Fame. I believe he should go in the Hall of Fame. They love this guy. They love everything about him. They're not jealous of him. They're celebrating it with him. They own a piece of that record. That tells you everything you need to know about him too. Everything you need to know about him is the guys who must have a big ego, who love playing the game too, but are great in their own right. Maybe not this, but great in their own right. TJ Oshie is one of the greatest players ever to put on a United States hockey jersey, ever. Right? He has had an astounding career. He's a Stanley Cup champion. He could easily go into the Hall of Fame. Nick Backstrom is one of the best assist makers in the history of the game. He is maybe the second best player the Capitals have ever had. And if he wasn't playing with Ovechkin, we would be calling him their best player all of these years. But because he played with him, he is now kind of relegated to the second fiddle to Ovi. But he's as big a part of this record as anybody else. And you could see they didn't have to pull them to come up there to be with him. They wanted to be there. They had to be there. This record's part of them too. And that's Ovechkin. That's Ovechkin making them part of this along the way. This was never always just about him. Of course, it somewhat was. And you can't possibly do this unless you have the ego, the wherewithal, and the talent to do it. And you got to want to do it. Because you got to want to play that long when you're that old and some nights can't skate whatsoever. You got to want to do it. When you're on a team like a couple of years ago that was a mishmash of players that was not threading the needle very well and wasn't particularly competitive, you still got to want to do it. And he did, and these players appreciated it. And you could see it in just how they reacted with him. He's an ultimate team player, albeit as one of, if not the greatest player in the history of the game. We can talk about that. I think comparing him to Gretzky is very, very difficult to do. Granted, they're really different eras now.
Yes.
And the game was very different. It's like similar to trying to figure out if Shaq or Wilt Chamberlain are like the best center. It's like they're both great and unique in their own way, or Bill Russell for that matter. But the game was so different. It's so hard to do something like that. And I'm more apt to look at this and go, I don't even think they're really comparable, because if you did a basketball comparison, Ovi is kind of LeBron and Gretzky was Jordan. There was a beauty to it, the way that he did it. There's nothing beautiful about the way LeBron plays. He's brute force. He's amazing. And I'm not trying to, because he goes after everybody. Don't call me Windhorst. But he's a great, an all-time great. But when people compare him to Jordan, it's very hard to do, because if you really know their games, they were very dissimilar players. Kobe was more like Jordan in the way that he played with the art and the beauty. Ovechkin is not art. Ovechkin is brute force. Ovechkin is, you can't stop this. Gretzky had the Kobe Jordan, I'm going to do this goal. McDavid is closer to Gretzky than Ovechkin ever was. McDavid has this ability to skate through people in ways that you can't believe, and you almost can't believe your eyes. Ovechkin was the worst nightmare of the other team, because if he got the puck on his stick, he was going to hit it so hard and so accurately, it was literally unstoppable. They're not comparable players to me.
No, it's exactly, you're doing the exact thing that, a lot of people used to do when people used to try to put Crosby and Ovechkin against each other. And even their own fan bases, Penguins and Caps fans, would go, they're not the same player. Crosby is an elite center that can see things with eyes in the back of his head, and Ovechkin is a pure goal scorer. And nobody was trying to really say people would argue with one was better or not, but I think both fan bases by, year 10, halfway through their careers, just kind of knew they were different players, and they were completely at peace with that too. So yeah, I don't want to have the always the greatest whatever conversation. He's not, but he's one of the greats. Like, you cannot deny that from him, especially at the consistency that he did.
I don't think you can compare the two. I just don't think they're very comparable players, other than they were prolific. And the one thing that like Ovechkin has that Gretzky didn't, but this really wasn't his fault, is I think if the owner in Edmonton didn't do what he did, Gretzky might have played for a very long time, if not his entire career in Edmonton. A lot of that was out of his control. There's a great documentary about it where the owner really unwisely and stupidly traded away the greatest player in the history of the game in the middle of his career, not right at the end when he was out of gas, like in the middle of his career. And that started a nomadic trek for him with Los Angeles and St. Louis and the Rangers. And, that's just weird to see someone of that status to kind of try to find a home again. The difference there is Ovechkin was in a stable organization that wanted him, that always valued him. Ted Leonsis has had a lot of successes. The greatest thing he's ever done is sign that guy to a 13-year contract. And he knows that.
Yep.
Like, that is a huge leap of faith to do something like that. This is a very young person you're doing it with. You can't possibly know that he's going to live up to something like that. Did he live up to it? He lived up to it and beyond. It's the greatest investment he ever made. And honestly, we owe him a debt of gratitude for doing it, because most owners would not do something like that. I remember talking to him. I talked about this last week where he had mentioned this story. He's told other people this, that David Stern, the former commissioner of the NBA, called him and said, "You're crazy. You shouldn't give anybody any length of something like that." But he knew he was different. He trusted him. And that trust was rewarded not only in breaking records, but just being a stable force, a great teammate. When you talk about the culture of the Capitals, it's impossible not to look at Ovi. And I know he wasn't the captain early in his career, but there's a standard here with him. And for some point, for some who will look back at the old days and go, I don't know how in shape he was or what that offseason was like, or I don't know if I would tell young players that drinking soda on the bench and eating chicken parm every day is really the way to go. However, if you watched his commitment to the team, his commitment to the game, his commitment to himself, and clearly his love of his teammates and his love of the game, it's hard not to look at that and go, even the greatest can have all the right attributes to make this work for everybody.
I think to your point too about the teammates and how, they were so happy for him as well. Like, you have to look at the fingerprints of his, making of the culture here. Like, what have we heard? Really, it's really the last 5 or 6 years that it's taken off, that every time a new player, because there's been a lot of new players as of late, they come in and they go, I was welcomed with open arms. This is one of the coolest locker rooms I've been a part of. That's him. Like, that's Ovechkin to a T. He doesn't care where you're from. He doesn't care what language you speak. He just wants you to come in and play hockey, and he wants you to come in and play hard. And like, it's like a broken record on our broadcast, on the Caps broadcast. Every time we have an interview with Jacob Chikrin, the first thing he says is how much everyone loves each other in the locker room. And it's like every time, it's like they don't even ask him about it, but he just talks about how everyone loves each other. And I'm like, that's Ovechkin. Like, that's Ovechkin to a T. Like, he doesn't care. He's just going to give you a gap-toothed smile and say, come on, let's go play. And that's what he's been doing for a long time. And I think that's only now come around to really come out of, like, he's actually made these locker rooms over the years, basically be a very open and welcoming environment. And I think that's why his teammates love him too. Like, we know how it is to be a professional athlete. There are certain locker rooms that I'm sure you've been a part of where things are tense all the time. This team has almost never been like that. So
the only one that I have proximity to all the time is the Commanders, obviously. And I started saying this very early in the season last year. I said, this is a special season because of what was happening in that locker room.
Yeah.
Like, I could just see it. And I was a realist, and I looked at the roster and I saw all the buts with them, but I knew they had something there. I don't know how they did it. I give a lot of credit to everybody. I don't think anyone can like concoct chemistry, but I will say that Dan Quinn, one of the attributes about him was always that he brings people together. He gets to know people. They want to play for him. They end up wanting to play for each other. We'd heard about a lot of these different things that had happened in the offseason where they had these events or he moved lockers around or he had different conversations, and it really worked, which is why I want to give him, I thought he should have gotten way more attention for Coach of the Year. I know there were a tremendous amount of really good candidates. Because, I mean, Minnesota had a crazy record. Detroit had a crazy record. The Chiefs had a crazy record. There was a lot of really great candidates for Coach of the Year this past season in the NFL. But Dan Quinn to go from 4-13 to 12-5 with the way that team played, with a roster that give me a break. If you thought that was going to end up in the NFC Championship game, you are way too much of an optimist. Like I'm an optimist, and I'm like, I think they could have a good season. Maybe they're second place in the division. Maybe they can make the playoffs. I did not see a realistic path to where I was going to Philadelphia thinking they're going to win. That was him. That was these players. I hope that sticks around. This has been going on in the Capitals locker room for a long time. It really has. And it does go back to the great players, especially at his age now. When you start bringing young people in, they idolize him. They could pretend they don't, but they do. How do you play with him if you're 23 years old, 24 years old? I'm sure the same thing happened late in Tom Brady's career with New England or in Tampa. The older players, they're probably like, this is amazing. I get to play with this guy. The younger players, holy crap, they pretended to be that guy. They did. That's hard. And he still made it an open, welcoming place. This season's unbelievable. I would assume, I don't know. I'm not in their locker room, so I don't know. I got a great feeling about Carberry the second I saw him speak, that clearly he knows how to get everybody to be on the same page. So I want to give him a lot of credit too. But those older players, ones like this, all-time greats, players who've been in the uniform for a long time, have won before here. I know there's less and less of them, but have won before here, know what it's like to be really good year in and year out. If they're not welcoming to all of these new people that came in, this season wouldn't be happening like this. And think about how many of those players that jumped off the bench on Friday night and yesterday weren't even here last year. Yeah. This is not the same. This is not 6-7 years ago where all those guys, it's that crew that has played together for so long. You could feel that like they were part of this. Chikrin just got here, Mangiapane, how many others? There's Roy, the goaltender, Radish,
Hunter Shepard,
Ryan Leonard's been here a week. Like they just traded for that Penguins guy. Like
Beauvillier,
Yes. This is a large subset of this team that wasn't even here a year ago, let alone the few that have been here the last couple of years as they've tried to figure out how to regroup and thread this needle. And look at how they reacted to him. Like, that wasn't let's just tap the sticks because the guy in our locker room did something we're never going to see again. They couldn't wait to rush and jump him. It was everything watching that yesterday.
Well, and I think the both of the celebrations were a culmination of who Ovechkin is, right? You always laugh because I brought it up on Friday. You always laugh when I bring up the Don Cherry Eurotrash thing. And the reason Don Cherry did that was because Ovechkin didn't act like a robot after he scored. He acted like a kid and jumped into the glass. And he doesn't really jump into the glass anymore, but he still acts that way. Like, he's been doing this for over 20 years, and he still acts like he scored a goal for the first time. Like, look at how he celebrated after he scored that goal. I mean, that was full legend stuff where he goes and dives out onto the ice like he's jumping into the Georgetown fountain. Like, John called it on the call like that, essentially. And I think what happened there was all those guys on the team and all the guys that are on the team right now, they grew up watching him play like that and having this enthusiasm that you don't see from the Canadian guys. Crosby doesn't celebrate like that. McDavid doesn't celebrate like that. A lot of guys do not exude that emotion. And I think that ties into why Ovechkin has been so popular in general, but also really popular here. Like, we know that he's ours and that he's a unique individual and that when he scores, he's going to let it all out. And think about the Rock the Red era. That doesn't happen without his enthusiasm, without him being this kind of boisterous, enthusiastic, basically a kid. He still acts like a kid most of the time. He's doing this stupid dance before, dancing with Chikrin before every single game. He's been doing this for so long, and he's just a different individual. He's a different cat, as a coach would say. And that is the culmination of all of them celebrating with him yesterday too, was you know what? This guy's been enthusiastic for this long. We can pull on the same rope and be that enthusiastic about him as well.
It just can't be performative. I talk about Maryland basketball a lot as good old days. I love it. I love Gary Williams. That's what I love. I love him because he was in that sport. It can be players at times, but they so come and go that it really is always about the coach. And in that case, he was the perfect coach for me as a fan of the team. He engendered a level of enthusiasm and desire to win and care for the team and the program that is intoxicating, which is why everybody became rabid Terp fans and became this. Like, Unleash the Fury is kind of the perfect tone for what Ovechkin is, because that's exactly what he is. And this is why we loved him. He genuinely cared. That's the part of this. Like, he's great, and his greatness is now etched forever. There will never be any question about how great he is. Not that I think there was for the last couple of years, but now there's no but on him. But for us that had the joy of watching him for all of these years and continuing to into these playoffs and what sounds like next year too, if he's going to continue and do, I assume he will, but who knows? Now that he broke the record, and let's see what happens in the playoffs, let's see what he thinks about all of that. Whether this is, towards the end or near the end and he plays one more year, we're at the end of the string with this. What I can say most about him, that I love about him, and this is what he did for hockey, this is what he did for this area, he turned it into a hockey town, is his enthusiasm. You can't not love it. You can't not get engaged with it. You can't not connect to it. That's the power of sports. I say this all the time. I don't care if you win or lose. If you show me how much you care, put in the same amount of enthusiasm and effort that I am buying those tickets, showing up and rooting for you. If you do that, I can deal with warts and I can deal with wins and losses. But if you don't do it, it will be obvious. It will be obvious. And he never did that. He always put his best effort out there. He was always an incredible teammate, and it didn't hurt that he was the greatest goal scorer I've ever seen. And you couldn't look away when they went on a power play with him, because you knew that night in, night out, he might be unstoppable.
And the other part of what you say about that too, though, is he's had some of the craziest goals with controlling his body. We go to the one his rookie season that he scored in Arizona, right? Where Wayne Gretzky was the coach of the Coyotes, and it's dubbed the goal. I mean, that's how good he was from day one, essentially. He had one against Montreal that they always show on the highlight reels where he bounces a puck off the board and then he's on his back and still fires the puck and scores, right? Like, he did crazy things doing that. But to your point, too, about, like, caring and stuff, too, like, I've never seen in this area any of the teams get people to latch on that are transplants. Like, we are in a unique part of the world where this city, every 4 years, new people come in, or 8 years or whatever, and everyone is a fan from where they come from. But the Capitals were the only team that I would ever see consistently where people that either didn't watch hockey or didn't have loyalty or whatever, they would become Caps fans. And I talk about this to you every single year when the Caps go to the West Coast. They have this reverse transplant effect where Caps fans take over other teams' buildings because people become Caps fans here when they move here for a couple of years. You don't do that unless you have a superstar like Ovechkin. And like, just if you think about it, over literally 2 decades, the brand that the Caps have become, they're synonymous with being like a top 5, top 10 brand. You and I love the Caps, but in 2002, 2003, they weren't that kind of brand here. Like, they were the 3rd most popular team in the city. You could have argued when the Nats got here, they were the 4th most popular team in the city. And now it's like everyone gets on board when they're going on a playoff run. Like, you and I can go back to 98 where they make it to the Stanley Cup final and the other team's fans, the Red Wings fans, took over the building. Like, that would never happen in this city anymore with this team ever. And you don't do that without getting Ovechkin and having that success over 20 years. It's nuts to think about, but like, the impact he has had on this town in terms of the hierarchy and what people care about, and now, across the country, what people care about, it's literally unreal what he brought to the table and is bringing to the table, because it's not like he's finished yet. He's got a year left, but what he's done, it's just, you can't even really put into words how much he's done at this point.
Yeah, let me take a quick break. I want to stay on Ovechkin for a minute. Trey Buster Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.
It's tourney time, and with FanDuel's Dog of the Day, you can get a daily profit boost during the College Conference Championships to bet on any underdog. So get ready to celebrate some upsets.
No one saw that coming, except for me, baby.
21 plus in present in select states. Opt-in required. Minimum plus 100 odds required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Lowe's is the destination for Ego outdoor power equipment this spring. See what's new and exclusive, like the 17-inch string trimmer with Line IQ technology that auto-feeds to save you time. And the 22-inch Select Cut self-propelled mowers with a multi-blade system for precise cutting. Shop Ego Days, happening now during SpringFest at Lowe's. We help, you save. Selection varies by location while supplies last.
All right, welcome back. I want to spend a little more time about the record that Alex Ovechkin broke yesterday up on Long Island, scoring 85. It's very plausible he'll be over 900 before we get to the playoffs, and then he may play next year. He's under contract to play next year, so we'll have what I believe will be like a crazy retirement tour, and we'll see what the number is when he's done. And then I'm glad this is over because they've got a few games to regroup, get their heads on straight, and make a playoff run. They're still the number one seed now in the Eastern Conference, so they could have their cake and eat it too as a team. Like this whole time it was like, we're in a circus, he's going to break this record, but they'll never be competitive at the same time if they're not really careful. They figured out how to do both, which is amazing, which would be the all-time cake and eat it too. I want to go back to something you were talking about in the last segment, which was about like what he means. And here's what I like. I was watching the Final Four the other day. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And I saw Coach K in the crowd at the Duke game. And, you know, you'll see this where there are figures that just kind of loom over an organization and they mean something. And I was listening to the broadcast and I don't know if an Eagle said it or Tracy Wolfson. Someone said it, but they said, you know, John Shire told me, it was probably Tracy Wolfson. John Shire told us, or somebody said it. He goes, you know, like he's not overbearing. He's not around all the time, but they said when he does come in, everyone's attention gets changed very quickly, almost like he's cognizant of the power that he has and the gravitas that he has. From here forward, for the Capitals to continue a legacy of being a really good hockey team, they have to play to his standard. Anytime that he's in the building, or there are going to be things for him, there's going to be a statue in front of the new formed stadium or whatever renovated stadium they do. They can't do enough within the stadium to showcase who he is, because I think you want to remind any future player that ever puts this jersey on, that's the standard. We don't expect you to score 900 goals. We don't, but what we do expect of you, effort, teammates, desire, you care every single day.
Enthusiasm.
Enjoy it. You are playing a game. When you score, that is really exciting. Share it with your teammates. When has he ever done a solo celebration? Ever. What he did yesterday, diving on the ice, was probably the closest thing I've ever seen him do. Every single goal he ever did was he would jump into the boards and he would stare at his teammates waiting for a hug. Like he wanted to share all of it with them, and he was as happy for them when they scored than when he scored. That's the standard now. So my fear with him is he's going to go back to Russia after his playing career is over. We're not going to see him very often. But I'll tell you what, when he walks in that building, I would hope that anybody who ever puts that jersey on again looks up and goes, I better play the way he played, because that's the way he did it for 20 years here.
Well, and we haven't even really gotten into this. One of my favorite parts about the goal is that look at the people that assisted on it. It was Tom Wilson and it was Dylan Strome. And that was a big conversation of us, within the broadcast and the Caps reporters and stuff, was who's going to ultimately be on the score sheet next to that goal, because that's what you remember, right? And it was Dylan Strome, who, by the way, this was a storyline that a lot of people weren't following in general because it's so niche. Dylan Strome was saying out loud he wanted to be on the goal. He's a stats nerd. He loves talking about all of this stuff. He was saying, I want to be on the record-breaking goal. He's been saying it since last year that he wanted to be on it. So you look at a guy like that, where he's brought in from Chicago, where Chicago didn't even give him a qualifying offer to come back and be a part of the Blackhawks, who were a terrible team, by the way, and still are a terrible team. He comes in here. He's been great. He's been a number one center for them. And honestly, he stepped into a really awkward situation where the greatest center in Capitals history, Nicholas Backstrom, had to retire and still hasn't really, he still, I guess, technically isn't retired, but we know that he's retired, right? And he had to replace him, and he's done nothing but step up and be a model citizen in the uniform. And then the primary assist was Tom Wilson, one of 4 of the holdovers from the Stanley Cup team, who you and I know is going to be the future captain of the team once Ovechkin is out. And he's going to be the guy that also has to carry that torch. I thought it was so fitting that those were the 2 that are going to be etched in history, because I feel like both of them in their own right are kind of the epitome of like what this organization has done. It's, oh, it didn't work out there. Come over here. We'll lighten it up a little bit. And don't worry, like we'll give you all the tools you can to succeed. And Strome has done that. And then you have a guy like Wilson, who's homegrown and wears the crest on his chest. And he's proud of wearing a Capitals crest on his chest and will do just about anything for any of his teammates. That's Ovechkin too. And so I thought also off of that goal, having those 2 guys have the assist was very fitting, because I think they also are pillars moving forward of the organization.
I mean, like I had to tweet something. I don't tweet very much. I had to say something when I saw it, and all I could come up with was thank you, just to him. Like, thank you to the organization too. But like, thank you to him. Like what he's given us, like I feel part of that. I've never felt part of anyone else's accomplishments like that. Like I feel part of his, because he brought us into it. And that's what I so appreciate about him. Like I wanted to cheer for him. It was impossible, not just because he was our best player. He wanted me to. He made me feel like I was there with him. He'd score a goal. He'd look up at us. Like that was remarkable. It was emotional watching it happen. And then I love that he was a kid again. Like, I don't know whether he planned to do that or not, but he just nosedived into the ice. It was really amazing.
I mean, and like the funny part is like we haven't even really talked about Friday as much. That goal that he scored on Friday, and he runs over to see his kid on the glass. He bows down to Gretzky. And then in both games on Friday, he's got a Bud Light in his hand wearing flip-flops, ready to do the press conference with the media. And then yesterday, he's got a Coors Light in his hand as he's talking with his family. Like, the guy's just a guy too. Like that's what I love about it too. It's like there doesn't seem to be this overarching like, he's definitely not a health nerd either. We see it with the hot Cheetos and Subway in his hand walking on the plane every week too. Like it's just, I don't know. He's so down to earth. Nothing seems fake about him, I think is what I'm like getting at here. Like, and I know that behind the scenes too. That is not an act. Like he is genuinely one of the nicest guys. He says hi to everyone in the building every single day. It's not an act. Like what you see on the ice epitomizes who he actually is. And I think that's where I'm landing here over the last 48, 72 hours is that like, we've just had a genuine human being be one of the greatest players in the sport and the greatest player our city has ever seen. And it's just been, I think you put it well, like it's just been a joy to watch it. And what I learned to probably, I'd say about 10 years ago, as a Caps fan and then jumping into the broadcast was like, I never hold it to you when you hop on this bandwagon, because that guy, if you didn't watch the sport before, I'd want to hop on the bandwagon too. And I'd want to start watching him too. And I never held it up against anybody of whether you jumped in 2007 or whether you jumped in the last 5 years. It doesn't matter because I get it. I get why you want to be a part of what he's putting out there.
Right. It's not just that he's great. You're not bandwagoning it. It's a movement, and it's because of him.
Yeah.
Because of him. There are thousands and thousands of kids that play hockey in this area because of him.
Yes.
And not because he's great. That would be a lure. We had a lot of great nationals. There's probably a lot of kids who want to play baseball because Bryce Harper was here and Juan Soto was here and Ryan Zimmerman was here and Max Scherzer was here. But like, this is a movement. This was a complete movement. And I think, like, I remember because, we've done sports radio for so long. How many times that people would always tell us, I hated this because I was such a big fan of this team since I was a kid, when they would say, well, it's the same 20,000 people that watch them every night, go to their games. That's it. There's nothing more than that. And when they won the Stanley, that may have been true at some point, but it wasn't when they got good because of him. Yep. And it wasn't just because he was great. It was because of everything he represented that we're talking about. And when they won the Stanley Cup, one of my most proud moments of our city was seeing the flood of red that hit the entire streets throughout the entire run into the parade. And it shut every other person up who always believed that this team wasn't that important around here. He did that. A lot of people did it. I don't want to take anything away from Ted or others that have a lot to do with the building of the Capitals as a brand and a cultural touch point in this city, but it's him. And I think if they're all being honest, maybe he didn't do it purposefully, but just being who he was, playing the way he played, doing the things he did night after night, he's a movement. And there's nobody like that I can remember in this city.
And what I would say to you, to your point too, is like, The Caps were good in the 80s. They put out some great teams that should have probably been contending for Stanley Cups, but they just didn't have this type of personality. It didn't exist in the 80s. It didn't exist in the 90s, honestly, either. And what I always call Ovechkin is he was basically the napalm that decided to just say, hey, this is a great product, but I'm going to be the one that spreads it and blows it all up. And that's essentially what he's done here. And you need something to break through the noise. He's the perfect noise breaker, essentially, in my opinion. That if you didn't even like watching hockey, I remember bringing people to games early in his career, and I go, you don't really have to know much about the rules or anything. Just watch that number 8 guy when he steps out on the ice, and you're gonna have a good time. And he was hitting people and scoring and doing everything he could to get wins for them. It's truly something that's transcended the entire area too. And like I said, the reverse transplant effect is something people don't think talk about enough here. That other teams' arenas get taken over routinely by Caps fans because they're going, oh, we got to go see Ovi. We got to go see the Caps. We're that big of a fan that we need to go see them. You don't see that in the NHL much. You see some of the Canadian teams like Toronto, sometimes they'll travel to Florida for an excuse to go to Florida. But routinely, Caps fans will take over other teams' buildings. That never happened before him. That's ridiculous to think about when you think about the area that we're in the sports landscape that we're in a little bit.
All right, let me take a quick break. Barry wants to show his ESPN 630 to Sports Capital.
I was never really a runner. The way I see running is a gift, especially when you have stage 4 cancer. I'm Anne. I'm running the Boston Marathon, presented by Bank of America. I run for Dana-Farber Cancer Institute to give people like me a chance to thrive in life, even with cancer.
Join Bank of America in helping Anne's cause. Give if you can at BofA.com/supportAnne. What would you like the power to do? References to charitable organizations is not an endorsement by Bank of America Corporation. Copyright 2025.
Wow, this house is cute. But can I really get in the game in this economy? I do have savings, and I am responsible-ish. I should bury it. I'm being wild. But what if I'm not being wild, though? Could I actually score a...
Kick off your home buying journey with Zillow's new buyability tool. It makes it easy to find out what you can afford, so you can get off the bench and onto the playing field with confidence. Check your buyability, only on Zillow.
All right, let me just get to a couple very quick things other than OV today, which is this one, number one. Jack Jones was released by the Raiders 2 years ago, had a very, very good season. Last year did not. Apparently they were trying to trade him. Obviously nothing came of that. So they just released him. I'm interested to hear how the Commanders feel about him. I don't know how they feel about him, but I know what he was a couple of years ago. And this is another position where they could go in this. I know they've upgraded here with Jonathan Jones and Lattimore, but they are still, that position group isn't done yet. So I don't know. I wonder if they're going to if the Commanders are going to take a look at Jack Jones now that he's on the market.
Instantly, I thought if this was a name that they were actually interested in, I like where he would slot in, right? It would most likely be at the fourth corner spot, or sometimes he'd be on the outside. Colored me interested because I like where he'd fit in on the depth chart on where he'd be.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we got the national championship tonight. Florida versus Houston. I got to tell you, what never gets old is Duke losing in the Final Four. That never gets old. They blew a 14-point lead with 6 or 7 minutes to go. That was glorious to watch. I don't know how they collapsed. And off of it, it's so hard day to day. It's just 2 days ago, and that must be an emotional win. I got a hard time seeing Houston lose, honestly. If they can knock them off and come back from what they came back from, I got them. They're the experienced team here. That whole team's back from what they've been the last couple of years. That center's name is escaping me right now. That dude's an NBA player. He's got all the NBA tricks up his sleeve. I got Houston tonight. I think they win the national championship, and what I assume will be a very close game.
Head says Houston, heart says Florida, only because I have them winning in my bracket. So I'm just, I'm kind of rooting for Florida, but I don't really care. I'm with you that what Houston did the other night kind of scares me, and they should probably win. But either way, I did have Florida winning.
I mean, in college basketball now, this will never be that Duke team was a super team.
Yeah.
You're gonna see it in the NBA when 3 or 4 of them, including one is a big time star. That was a super team because teams aren't together very much anymore. Like it's not the Fab Five where they've been around for a couple years and like they have the bullseye on them. But that was a ridiculous team that they had, and I'm shocked they didn't win the national championship. So I give Houston a tremendous amount of credit. That's the win. I know they're really good too, but that's the win of the year in the whole sport. They came back and did that.
They're going to be on those videos. Like people post LSU now where it was like Chase, Jefferson, and Burrow. Like they're going to be on those videos and everyone's going to ask, how did they not win?
Yep.
With Duke. Yeah.
That is what it's going to be. All right. I got Houston tonight. All right, everybody. See you tomorrow. Brave Watch the Show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital.